Let us pay respect to Ajahn by making 3 bows.
So please be comfortable. So guess what I was saying as I was coming down the hall? I love you, I've always loved you, I will always love you. It's a lovely line, isn't it? So the heart... Well, first of all, so people sometimes ask, what technique did Ajahn Chah teach? And really, if you think about life, is life a technique? No, life is an adaptation and a learning and a development of skills and trial and error and mistakes, and the same in meditation. So really, I think what Ajahn Chah taught was more the capacity to reflect and consider suffering and the end of suffering, and the capacity to train the mind, to understand the mind and train the mind, which isn't really a technique. I think it's just wisdom, intelligence. We certainly have lots of ubaya, or skillful means, in Buddhism, and those are very, very good. But I've been trying to emphasize that the primary let's say the launch pad of good practice, or the primary stepping stone, is knowing what's going on. I mean, it seems self-evident. Whereas if you just take up a technique and you think you just keep doing the technique, whatever it might be, that kind of mechanistic way of operating I don't think really works, because it doesn't take into account the variability of each day, each experience, each meditation. So when you begin a meditation, you probably do this already, and it's self-evident, but really just take stock of where you're at. How do I feel? I want to meditate, I don't want to meditate. So say in monastic life, like now, I enjoy meditation. The first few years it was tough going because I was very hot, or my mind was pretty undisciplined or untrained, or not very quiet. So then going to the meditation wasn't something I liked, and yet I was honorable, and I wanted to take the challenge of training my mind. So then I would, when I sat down, I'd try to really see, well, I'd rather not be doing this. I'd rather be doing something else. And if I'm aware of that, this is a feeling of not wanting to meditate, then I'm in the game. I know what's going on, and then I can adapt appropriately. One of the most difficult, I think, just watching people, the most difficult hindrance, I do think, is dullness. It's kind of common. Upstairs there's a monk's meditation room, and there's this 4-foot stick, flat stick, which I think in Japan they use more. And this is apparently this is a Rinzai school in the Chan tradition, and in Rinzai meditation in Japan, the meditators sit with their they sit facing the wall in the perimeter of the room, and then a monitor will come around, and if people are sleepy, the monitor will hit them on the shoulders and acupuncture points. And I've only been to one Rinzai meditation session, that was in Toronto, and you could hear the jigijitsu, the monitor going around, and then sometimes a meditator would ask by putting hands in Anjali, and then the monitor would place this, it's a 4-foot stick, on the shoulders of the practitioner, and then go whack, whack. We don't do that in Theravada, we just let you sleep. We're not so compassionate. But it was quite, you imagine, it was quite energizing. I didn't get hit, but the guy next to me did. Oh, okay. So, we just say, okay, she looks sleepy, let her sleep, kind of thing. But the way I've learned, like, that was a particular hindrance that came when I first visited my family. I'd been a monk for 4 years, and I hadn't been back in 7 years. And someone, just before I left Wat Nana Chat, someone said, you're nodding a lot. And I was very proud. I said, no, I'm not. But I was. And so the doubt came into my mind. And then what I did is at my parents' home, I found there was a full-length mirror, and I set myself up in meditation in front of the full-length mirror, not when my parents are around, and I set my alarm clock to 10 minutes, because I usually sat for an hour, and I just wanted to see where my posture was after 10 minutes. And so I'm sitting in front of the mirror, thinking I'm meditating. Buzzer goes off, and I look at the mirror, and I see I'm way down here. I wasn't even aware of it. I was really shocked that I had become so deluded by the hindrance of dullness that I really, really wasn't aware of my body, wasn't aware of my posture. So then I was a good shock in that sense. So then I began to do, I experimented with pranayama, Ujjayi pranayama mostly, deep breathing. And then I came across a kind of a method that was helpful for me. And it was a very, very vigorous method to get me back into some kind of vitality, inner vitality. So going back to, like, dullness is such a all-encompassing lack of vitality that you basically, as I was saying during meditation, I think you have to stop meditating in the way you're doing it in that moment, because it's just putting you to sleep. So you don't, like, if you just kind of see that you're nodding a bit and then you notice and you just go back to the same thing you're doing, you just keep nodding. So what I found is that if I could use my body more and be more embodied in the way I was meditating, and then I had to do something very vigorous. So then I tried keeping the eyes open. And if you've ever had sleepiness, keeping your eyes open is really, really difficult. It's amazingly difficult. And I found that wasn't enough, actually. It wasn't enough of a program. So then I started to do a practice where I used, first of all, long breath. We're going to try this, by the way. I would use a long breath in, a long breath out. First of all, I get a long breath established. Now, if you're sleepy and you use a long breath and you can't maintain a long breath, you realize it's because you're sleepy. So if you start to maintain a long breath, the breath will become shallow as the hindrance of sleepiness comes up. It's pretty obvious. So that's one very, very good thing. Just more volume of air and more vitality in the effort you make. So now we're making a very coarse effort. What I was talking about yesterday was quite refined effort. But now, in this, because of the hindrance, I'm making very, very coarse effort. It's still from the awake mind, and it's still the basis of the practice. So then, in the long breath in, long breath out, I would kind of use pranayama principles. So I try to make the in-breath as long as the out-breath. That takes more mindfulness, right? More attentiveness. Then I would try to make the breath smooth, which is a kind of pranayama principle. Then once I had established the long breath, then I would, I used the spine and the back of the neck and the top of the head. On the out breath, I would push my body up from the center of my body, from the small of the back, up through my back, up to the ceiling, on the out breath. I'll explain this as we go. So long breath in, long breath out, and then I'd push up. And in the pushing up, that's a very coarse kind of practice, but it certainly starts to energize. So I do that for 10 breaths, and then I'd do it the same thing on the out breath from the small of the back down through the coccyx. So then I push down into the floor, push my hara out on the out breath. I do that 10 times. And another 10 times I do it both ways. Now, that's a technique that is very, very effective for a particular hindrance. It's not a lifetime technique. I'd hate to have to do that the rest of my life. But it's very effective at a particular place in your practice. So this is the idea of ubaya, developing skillful means according to time and place, according to your practice. In that sense, then what would happen, of course, is now the mind has some vitality, and there's some sense of sustained presence. It's no longer me just kind of struggling with dullness. Now there is some brightness. And I think you can only really understand dullness from a position of brightness. If you're so tired that you're falling asleep, then go upstairs and have a snooze. Better than. But quite often dullness is just a kind of a habit. And so you have to see, are you really exhausted, or is it just the habit of a meditator? So then once there's vitality, so now I really know what's going on. And now I can monitor my body from a position of vitality and see, okay, what happens to the body when the hindrance of dullness arises? So I see the arising of the hindrance. Where? Through the body. The mind wants to think about something, some fantasy, but that's why I've been emphasizing the open chest, the neck. You know, this motion here, that's the first one to go for me. I don't know about you. That, you lose that. If you're not aware of that, then you lose this, and then you lose this, and then you're down for the count. And you're just down on you're just lost. So, establish vitality, then begin to investigate, contemplate. What is dullness? How does it affect the body? What's its energy form? Not through analysis, not through thought, but through observation. Kind of like, this is your laboratory, this is what you observe. And then I'd see, oh, okay. And I'd get really good at it. And then if, let's say, last year I wasn't able to come to Singapore because I fell and I had a torn rotator cuff and I was in hospital and all that kind of stuff. So I fell on the second day of the retreat, and then I taught the retreat, and then I had the operation afterwards. So it was but I was very sleepy because my body had a shock, but I was there to teach the retreat, and so my arm wasn't working that well. It wasn't too painful, but I had a tremendous amount of dullness. So, okay, this is it. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to work with dullness. So most of the retreat was just working with dullness. And fortunately, I know how to do it. And fair enough. That's the hindrance. That's what I work with. I mean, I could have gone to sleep, but it was hard to sleep because my shoulder hurt. And it was actually quite helpful for people learning about dullness. So these kind of ubaya that we can develop become very kind of personal. They're like a toolkit, I suppose. You understand where your mind goes off into dullness or worry, and you become very good at both awakening to the fact that this is where the mind is now off balance, and you become very good at introducing balance in various kinds of ways of ubaya. So then I could see that in my own, like going back to dullness, in the rhythms of my body, dullness in a daily cycle usually comes around 10 in the morning. Strangely enough, no matter how much I sleep. So you start to understand your body, the body rhythms, and what you might do for that. I did find in the early years of monasticism, I would just try to push through sleepiness. So like in that Wapapong or Wat we did a lot of meditation. And so I tried to do sitting meditation after lunch, which is a disaster. And then I would just fight the dullness, like for hours. And that was hopeless. It was really hopeless. And I said, well, just have a snooze for for half an hour, say. And I do that, and then I feel refreshed again. So I just kept exploring this particular hindrance according to my own body, my own lifestyle, and I sort of figured, okay, this is the time I get sleepy. This is the time where rest is good. This is a time where I don't need to rest, so on and so forth. Now I'm older, I'm 76, so, rest cycles are different, and, keep learning about the kind of aging nature of the body and dullness and sleepiness as it comes. So how about that? Shall we just try this? If you're not sleepy, still give it a go, and maybe it'll put you to sleep, I'm not sure. Just so you get a sense of how to work with that defilement, it might be helpful. Start in the same way. Set up the posture. Bring attention away from thinking into the body. Whole body awareness. Body feels this way now. And the idea I was presenting yesterday about letting the body become conscious. Just whatever sensations or pressures or pains in the body, let them come up into consciousness. So you're establishing this kind of witnessing, conscious aware practice, knowing the way things are. It's like this. Go to the silence of knowing. Let go of thinking. Let go of past and future. Listen to sound. Let the sounds come to you. Receptive awareness. Perceive sound as in awareness. Notice the changing nature of sound. Notice the stillness of knowing, awareness. Feel your hands. Feel the tactile sensations in your hands. Let that become conscious. Perceive bodily feelings as in awareness. Notice the changing nature of tactile feelings. Notice the stillness of awareness. Listen to sound. Feel the body. Sound body change. Does awareness change? Be that awareness. So let's assume that we're all dull and sleepy, but we've had a good rest and work on this method. Bring attention to the breathing. Extend your breath longer than normal. So long breath in and long breath out. Really fill up the lungs. Really become very active in this. Long breath in. Long breath out. Stay active with this filling up of the body with air. Try to make the in and out breaths the same length. Long breath in, long breath out. Make the long breaths in and out smooth. So long and smooth, even. Now we'll stretch the upper part of the body. So on the out-breath, stretch from the base of the spine, up through the spine, through the back of the neck, and imagine that the head is being pulled up to the ceiling. So long breath in, long breath out, really stretch up, open your chest. So like I'm on a chair and I'll just kind of lean forward. Long breath in, long breath out, stretching up, open the chest. Feel the back of the neck, stretch to the ceiling. Enjoy the stretch. Long breath in. Again, long breath out, stretching from the base to the top. Stay with the stretch. And do that a few times. Obviously, if you got sleepy, you'd stop doing this. You'd forget to do this. Long breath in, long breath out, stretching up. Now let's do the other half of the body. So long breath in, long breath out, pushing down from the coccyx, base of the spine, into the cushion or chair. And then pushing the hara forward, small of the back forward. So on the out breath, you're pushing down into the ground. Long breath in, long breath out, downwards. Hara, you're going out. Long breath in, long breath out, down. Now do it both ways. Long breath in, long breath out, stretch up and down. So you're really putting a lot of effort into the spine, pushing up, pulling up and pushing down. And then now just establish a comfortable posture. Let go of the deep breathing. And just be aware of your posture. How does the body feel now? Then choose the meditation you'd like to do. So if we were doing the heart, you could do that. So breathing in at the heart, Lompo, breathing out, may you be well. Whatever you like. And then if you feel dull, get onto it right away. Don't kind of wait. Just notice that you're not able to keep your posture, and then get into this vitality right away. Get that going, and then inquire into the nature of dullness, how that affects your posture. So it's a learning and a training. But otherwise, just stay with something peaceful that calms your mind. So if we do the breath like this morning, breathing into the heart, may I be well. Breathing out, may you be well. Welcoming in, giving out. All right, you play around with that, see what happens. See if you can let go of past and future. Just don't go there. Don't pick it up. Hear me at the back? Yep. Okay. So just before I tuck into these questions, go back to what I was suggesting this morning, exploring the heart chakra. Again, I'm just sharing my hobby, actually. So these are the things that I find interesting and work for me. And the tradition I'm from is a reflective tradition rather than a dogmatic tradition. So it's really not right or wrong. It's just, does the suggestion help you? Does it work for you? If not, good. If not, if it does work, good. If not, no problem. So I found the exploration of the heart chakra very rewarding, and because we are emotional beings, and we can feel tremendous compassion, and we can feel rage, we can feel fear, we can be fearless. And I found like the exploration of fear as a phenomenon, rather than always analyze it or be caught in the self-identity with fear. I found exploring it here was really, really interesting. And it has a huge effect on the hara, on the heart chakra, on the throat. So as fear might arise in some kind of social situation where I felt some social anxiety, after not getting caught up to the thoughts, I'd then say, okay, where is that in the body? How does it actually feel? What does fear feel like? So then it became much more an object. What's it like in the throat? What's the tension in the belly? Not with any idea of doing anything about it, but just to know it as an object. And so that kind of objective contemplation always, it did two things. It released the fear that was part of the vipaka kamma of my makeup and my kind of cultural conditioning, whatever. And then it also strengthened the sense of trust in witnessing, the sense of trust in awareness. The more you trust in awareness, the more one is able to just witness phenomena as anicca dukkha anatta, and the peace and underlying serenity of consciousness is noticed more and more, because that's always there. It's not something that's constructed or built up. It's just something that needs to be noticed. And then, of course, other negative emotions like anger, but things also then like, what does true compassion feel like, as opposed to worry? What does it actually, where do I feel it? Well, I feel it here too. And then what is the difference between compassion and worry? You can see how compassion can go to worry. So, like, you probably know my story that I took care of my mother in the last 9 years of her life in Ottawa. I lived in her condo, and she lived to be 97. And so with my mom, we were very close, and she never had any dementia or anything like that, so we had a really good friendship. But I saw that the Brahmaviharas, the arising, like the constant sense of goodwill towards her was easy. Compassion was straightforward. Joy. The story I like to tell is like after 4 years of caring for Mom, a bunch of us decided to start a forest monastery near Ottawa. And so we got a piece of land, and there was a house on the land, and I couldn't be there, but I could be there on the weekends. So I got some care for Mom, and I was away for about 36 hours, which worked quite well. So every weekend I would go, and I would have the dana at the monastery, stay a night, and then come back after the dana. And then my mother loves flowers, so every Sunday for 5 years, I'd go to the same store that sold cut flowers, and I'd the driver would go in and buy some flowers for me, and then I'd bring the flowers to Mom, and I'd have them behind my back, very corny, and then I would produce them like a little boy. And the joy in her face, was so exquisite. We did that for 5 years. You might say that's sentimental, but that's what we call mudita, that I could feel my mother's joy in a very real way, and I could have the same kind of joy as she does. That's a beautiful human quality, mudita. Of course, it's opposed to jealousy, and we can enter those territories through imagery, through like say Firefly Mission that do these inspiring school projects in Laos. I was just a part of a initiative in Nan province, and I wasn't a part of it, I witnessed it in Nan province in Thailand, northern Thailand. And the organizers of my retreats there had organized a public health initiative that did 600 dental examinations, 1,100 eye examinations, and all manner of treatments for probably like 2,000 people over 8-hour period, one day. And they brought in people from villages, Hill-tribe people who don't have good health care, and 130 health doctors and technicians came up there. They had all kind of dental equipment, and 30 of my friends from the Angel Group, they were the organizers. And it was just so beautiful to see like human goodness in manifesting in this magnificent way. So I had a lot of joy, mudita, for their goodness. So we have these lovely possibilities, and those I feel here too. I think we all do. But going back to my mum, the really difficult bit with my mum was the upekkha. The upekkha is the peacefulness and peaceful coexistence with the way things are. We translate it as equanimity sometimes. And the lesson for me was that, like, mom was on some pretty serious painkillers. She had rheumatoid arthritis. She had osteoarthritis, and if the weather changed, her pain levels would shoot up, and I could just see it. And she'd try to contain it and not let me know that she was in pain, and then I would try to not let her know that I'm worried about her pain. So these two loving people are trying not to tell each other actually what's going on, and I saw that with her, I wanted to end her pain, but I couldn't. She had her pain to deal with, and I have mine. And I saw the difference between compassion and worry was me trying to pick up her karma. She wasn't asking for it, she wasn't expecting it, but you don't want the person you love, you don't want them to suffer. It seems kind of natural, but it's not compassion, it's worry. Compassion still acts, you still act, I still did everything I could for her. And so then in that contemplation, I could see that compassion is actually very peaceful for me. When I rest in the heart with someone that's suffering, if I go to, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? How can this person live? And I need to do something, that's not compassion. I can act on the compassion, but just contemplate the very sense of compassion. To me, it was always like a connection to her suffering and a kind of statement, yeah, life is like this. Old age is like this, obviously. If you're 95 years old, it's not, it's not a bowl of cherries. And that really helped her be more peaceful with her pain. And because she wasn't worried that I was worried that she was, that kind of a thing. So these for me are heartfelt, literally heartfelt. And upekkha, or equanimity, to me is always conjoined with love. It's not a cold indifference. So the four, I don't know if you know the package, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, we talk a lot about that. Goodwill, compassion, joy, and peace. And they are, I would see, the liberated mind, liberated heart's response to the human predicament. And so in any ways that we can cultivate that and develop that, I think we're tending to freedom. We can't always do that. So that, to me, is a reference in the heart. But then all the things which block the heart, such as fear and anger and so on, also can be explored from the heart. And so I found these kind of meditations are just like bringing, I'd notice myself thinking and then come down from the thinking mind, go to the throat, feel the throat chakra, come down to the heart and let attention rest there. What is that like? Which was a way of contemplating fear, but not just always going to the thinking mind, to the analysis, to the storyline, to the judgment, always that. I found that wasn't really profitable. And from that, I think that silence is really the gateway to the deathless, but it's also the gateway to wisdom. Because when we're silent and attentive to our own predicaments, joyous or not, insight has a chance to arise. It's not preoccupied with positions and biases and things like that. So I really encourage that sense of silent witnessing. And that's not annihilating. We'd always like to be silent, obviously. We get so fed up with the thinking mind, right? But that silence has to be sort of remembered rather than forced. And the way I'm trying to suggest that is just listen to silence. So even though there's lightning, or no, that's called thunder, right? Even though there's thunder, there's still the silence of awareness. And that's what, to me, is the background. That's the way I talk. All right? Just to kind of review what I was trying to point to this morning. Dear Luang Por, what will you advise or suggest as a structure for us to progress in our meditation? Besides sitting at home and going for retreats, is there a structure, a guide for us to use as a reference to deepen our practice? Well, that's everyone's question, isn't it? How do I do this? Well, I can only reflect as a monk. And I came to monastic life at I was 23, and I didn't even know how to meditate. I just had this strong urge to be a monk. It was culturally weird, really, for my culture. And but what I saw about monasticism, it was a structure that I could give up to. So it was no longer it was no longer a structure that was devised through my own desires or fears. And that gave me a chance to surrender. Oftentimes I didn't like it. Oftentimes I felt inadequate. Sometimes I liked it, now I love it. But the whole principle of having a social structure which I could give up to. Okay, now, and the way Luang Por Sumedho would describe that is now you're in a vehicle. When someone ordains with him, when they used to, he doesn't ordain people so much anymore, but they would say, well, now you're in a vehicle. It's called the Vinaya vehicle. It's not a Rolls Royce. Call it a Volkswagen if you want. It's good enough. And just watch, just observe, just sit and watch as the daily schedule goes. Now, monastic life is that way, and the structure is given to us from the Buddha, so we all agree to do it. Lay life doesn't have that, but you do have structures that you have to give up to. Family responsibilities, vocational responsibilities, they're just a part of it. And I realize that those structures can be, like maybe work structures are very competitive or even aggressive, so they're not so easy. But if the attitude is one of making your whole life a monastery, in other words, the board meeting that you go to or the committee meeting you go to, and the person that gets up your nose is your teacher, and you're kind of a Devadutta. We use this idea of Devadutta as a heavenly messenger. So when someone presses your buttons, assuming they're not abusive, right? If they're abusive, then that's a different story. So like in monasticism, if someone is abusive, we chuck them out, basically. You can't do that. But in the ordinary course of events, if the sort of civil law is being kept and someone isn't abusive, then someone that gets up, that annoys you, and they're not immoral, etc., then they become your teachers. I mean, you don't tell them that, right? You know, you're my teacher, thank you very much. But then they become the avenue for you understanding annoyance, right? So, I know it's not so simple, but let's say there is someone in your family, extended family, Uncle Harry or whoever he is, and, you know, Uncle Harry always kind of says things that you find offensive politically or ecologically, or maybe he's like you're a feminist and he's like a male chauvinist, you know what, and he gets up your nose, and you have to kind of be with Uncle Harry on Chinese New Year, and there it is, this is life. And then rather than resenting or fearing, you say, oh, this is what annoyance feels like, or this is what self-righteousness feels like, whatever it is, and you keep using the friction to awaken to the way things are. I know it's not that simple, but the more you can do that, then the tendencies towards suffering are now being awoken to. You awake to them, you strengthen the awareness, and the strength of the vipaka kamma, or the habits of mind, the anusaya, they are weakened. I know it's not that straightforward, but if that is an attitude that you try to bring into all the kind of structures of your life, then, you know, it's not, you do learn a lot. And we all do that. Otherwise, again, we'd be in psychiatric wards if we didn't know how to do this. This is just enhancing it and seeing. So, like I found in monastic life, if I was in a big monastery and there was one particular person that somehow the vibe was for me not working, and I get, you know, there's some negativity, then I said, well, okay, that's a really good opportunity because I'm seeing it all the time. A one-off experience of being insulted on the MRA, what do you do? On the subway. What do you call it? MRT, MRI, something else, right? So someone insults you on the MRT, and you kind of survive it. That's just a one-off. But things which are repetitive, things which bring forth social anxiety maybe, or things which bring forth a kind of annoyance, they can be very instructive because, you can see it again. You can see how it's operating. You can see how the sense of self gets embedded in that, how you create thought. And it becomes really, it can be quite edifying in that way. But then to the person's question about structures, I think the person already mentions that morning meditation, regular meditations and retreats are very important. I think morning meditation is the real key to developing a good lay practice or monastic practice. Because if you can wake up before the household and do a good hour's meditation, try to make it a good period of time, then your mind is now, first of all, it's imbued with the attitudes of awareness. And that's obviously going to carry through to some extent. Also, I think what happens is any kind of materials that's coming up from conflicts you're having or personal self-doubts, they tend to come up, and you see them as patterns. So you kind of, okay, that's where my mind is going. My mind's going towards worry about whatever, or resentment. And you got to say, that's the mood of the mind, that's what's happening, rather than just being in the narrative all the time, in the story. And sometimes morning meditations are also, you liberate some of that stuff, don't you? You feel the conflicts from yesterday are coming up now. That's good. That's like purification. It's coming through your mind. But you have to give it a good chunk of time. Like if you do morning meditation for 5 minutes, that's pathetic. Sorry, I'm a monk. So people say, I meditate every morning. You say, well, how much? 5 minutes. Sadhu. So, so like some serious investment in the training is good. Having said that, like Qigong is good, Hatha Yoga, these things are good. Some way where the kind of the busyness of the thinking process, the kind of compulsions of the things that draw us in society, somehow stopping all that, slowing that down. Evening meditation is much more difficult from what I can gauge from people, because the whole world has been stirred up through the engagement you have. If you can do evening meditation, great, do that. And quite often people are just so sleepy they can't, and then they find just going for a walk with a dog is a good idea. Dogs are good. Or doing some yoga or Tai Chi. But I think if you're sincere and you're taking responsibility for your own mind, you're always going to be learning. You won't always be happy, but you're always learning, because you're observing your intentions, your inner world. So this capacity of inner witnessing, as opposed just to the externalities of our narratives, just the inner witnessing, that becomes stronger and stronger. So you're talking to someone and you see you're getting aggressive. Oh wow, look at that. Aggression feels this way, even though you're talking to them. We can sort of, is that multitasking? You're talking to the person, but you're also aware of the emotional tone going on, and all of a sudden you're feeling defensive about something, or you're feeling aggressive about something. You notice that as a tension, and you kind of back off. You get better and better at that, and that's just the skill of the contemplative, the skill of the awakened mind. Bottom line for me is always awakening to the way things are. So you come out of the engagement with Uncle Harry, and you've totally blown it, and told Uncle Harry you really think he's a terrible person, and then you feel guilt. And you're sitting there in your morning meditation feeling guilty, and then you say, guilt feels this way. Come back home. Try not to do it. You keep coming back home to awareness of the way things are. So someone has a friend in Canada that is looking for a Dhamma support group. If you would just look up our website and send us an email, mention that you were on this retreat, and mention that I said contact us, and then I can give you a contact address. We're about an hour from Kanata. All right? Oh, this is the painful one. How do I deal with hurt and betrayal by my loved one? That's the most awful, isn't it? That's just so painful. Well, don't shoot them. Panatipata, like keep the precept, right? And then realize how profound I think betrayal is. It's not a minor thing. Trust and love, when that is undercut and you're kind of blindsided, is tremendously confusing psychologically, from my understanding. So the language, like if you're in a car crash and you're blindsided, you're crossing the intersection and you've got green and the person's running the red light and they blindside you. You don't even see it. Well, I think betrayal is like a blindsiding of the psyche, and from what I've witnessed in myself and in others, it is terribly confusing, because your whole sense of order is all of a sudden out of whack, and because you've been betrayed. So somehow in the first months or first year of that, you have to sort of survive it, I think. I don't think there's any way you can just sort of do upeka. You say, oh, my teacher. Or, oh, that was such a good lesson in my life. You usually say that 10 years later or 5 years later. So you have to be quite, I think what you really need is kalyanamitta, good spiritual friends, who will say to you, this is tough. How can I help you? This is going to take time to get through, rather than someone says, don't be attached. If someone says, don't be attached, throw them out of your house, because that's a cruel thing to say. And sometimes Buddhist language can be coming from a place of lack of compassion, really. You just throw this, don't be attached, and it's all changing, and you're going to die anyway. Well, thanks. That's really sweet of you. So I think, okay, so what I'm trying to say is that it's a serious mental phenomena, emotional phenomena. So Kalyanamitta, spiritual friends, counselors, kind of get you through, I think, the need to probably vent and to just talk about it, get it out of your mind, get it. Now, if you are counseling someone who's been betrayed, realize that counseling, if I'm not a professional counselor, but I talk a lot, if you can draw out a story from someone who talks about their trauma or their betrayal, then they have to become more objective. Not necessarily. They might just vent and get lost in it. But if they're a Dharma practitioner and you ask them to describe their bodily feelings and the narratives that are going through their mind, they have to kind of step back and objectively give it to you in language. And that actually helps people be more mindful. If they're venting and just dumping, then of course that's a different case. And sometimes that's necessary too. So in then starting to deal with this, there'll be the strong sense of confusion, disorientation. Then there'll be the desire for revenge, maybe. Then there'll be self-disparagement. There's all kinds of interesting things that can happen. And I think if you've developed some body awareness, some anapanasati, some sense of the heart chakra, then you can say, wow, this is really heavy. Where is it in my body? Or this is really difficult. What does the end of my out-breath feel? If you try to suppress the emotions of betrayal with breathing, then it won't work. That's a disaster. But if you explore heavy emotions through bodily feelings, like the end of the out-breath is a very relaxing place in the breath cycle. So something like this horrible sense of being betrayed would really probably tighten up your breathing. So maybe you'd investigate the end of the out-breath or what the heart chakra feels like. Now, when we're hurt, or when we hurt others, the pain of the hurt, I'm just talking from my experience, right? And it seems to me the pain of the hurt can be felt here, whether I betray someone or someone betrays me. But to stay there is terribly difficult because it is so painful. So my sense of it is what happens is we go into thinking. And the thinking is less painful than the heart. And the thinking can then be revenge thinking, or if I betrayed someone, it can be self-disparagement thinking. But that thinking process is one step removed from the way things really are here. And it's rather like I look at the carnations, and I can say they're red carnations, and I can say, are they real or not real, or they're cool or they're not cool. But actually the visual perception is before thought. And it is like that. It's just like that, okay? Apply that to an emotion like betrayal, it's harder to do, because the mind goes into description or analysis or judgment. It goes off into thought. So if one has developed a way of witnessing emotions before thinking, before creating a sense of self, then you've got a practice that can engage. I mean, I hope it never happens to you. But if it comes, then you've got a way of, oh, this is thinking, where's the emotion? Again, it's hard to do. So then like in the kind of evolution or the process of healing, betrayal, then first of all, I think you just have to be incredibly patient. And then when if self-disparagement comes up, then be very careful of that. And just kind of say, may I be free from suffering. If one was at fault, okay, you have to kind of own up to it. But usually these things are blindsided. And then as I think what happens is after a while, the thinking mind just gets caught in a narrative. It's no longer the kind of emotional power of the initial betrayal, and then it becomes a habit. And then there's a point where you say, don't go there. Don't go there. You don't have to go there. You can't say that immediately. I don't think so. Immediately, just the mind is so confused. But you can at some point, at witnessing it, say, don't go there. And at some point, forgiveness comes. Because you don't want to hold on to that. It's too negative. But to say to someone, when they've just felt, just experienced huge betrayal, to say, oh, just forgive and get on with it, would be a real cruel thing to say, to say the least, right? So then forgiveness would be a territory which eventually you'd want to enter into. You might say, oh, I think I forgive. No, I don't. And your mind might want to go there. Someone will suggest, well, just do a forgiveness practice. I forgive you. I hate you. Okay, not quite time yet. Hatred feels like this. It feels like this. So you want to be careful of idealism. The ideal is you get betrayed, you endure it for 2 weeks, and then you go to forgiveness, and your heart is open again. Good luck. Reality is not that way. So be careful of idealism. But in some, as the intensity of those things wears down, then you see the mind's just now in a habit. It's a habit of thinking the narrative of the betrayal, and then don't go there. Don't go to that sanya, don't go to that perception. Then forgiveness does naturally, I think, begin to manifest, because no one wants to carry this stuff around. It's not fun. But then the forgiveness also can be interrupted, say. So let's say this is 10 years down the road, and you're at a function, and someone has met your ex who betrayed you and thinks that they're the greatest person in the world. And they come up to you and they say, your ex, fabulous person, and you want to kill the guy. You don't know what he did this to me. And the whole thing comes up again. And that's memory. Memory is memory, and memory is not just narrative, it's emotion too. So you think you've worked this through, and then all of a sudden this button gets pressed, and you walk away, wow, look at that. Don't worry about it. It's not you, it's just the conditioned mind, right? And start again, it feels like this. So sometimes these triggers get, and you think, I can't practice anymore, I can't do the don't believe it. It's just stuff. It's painful. It's not just stuff, it's painful stuff. But you are the witness. You are not that. You are not those emotions. You're not all of that. So it is a very, very troubling psychological confusion, betrayal. And it can lead to a lot of either self-hatred or hatred of others. But if your practice is to try to find the transcendent and say, okay, this is what I have to witness. If I can witness betrayal, this is the way it feels, this is the way they get a lot of strength from that. Yeah? It took me a while to understand the teachings on background and foreground. I think I'm getting it, but how do I know I am doing it right? Well, you just say, am I doing it right? When you're there. Or say, I'm not doing it right. Feels this way. Or say, maybe I'm doing it right. It feels this way. So doubt is a very... it's a sneaky thing. Doubt is necessary, What time is it? When do we end the sitting? So functional doubt is okay, but kind of existential doubt, it plays with your mind. You might think, well, do I really understand what awareness is? And then you start thinking. And the thing about doubt is that we are, because we're intellectuals, we use thought a lot, we use analysis a lot, we use the thinking mind so much. We're used to when there's a doubt, we solve the doubt by having a conclusion. So we're problem solvers. But existential doubt, in this sense, is not really a problem. It's just a condition, and it's just it's a sankhara that manifests. So we're not moving towards intellectual confidence, in that sense, thinking confidence. We're just knowing that doubt arises and ceases, confidence arises and ceases. They come and they go. They're a duality in thought. Now you can have confidence in the sense of knowing that, and that's awareness, but that's not intellectual. So that the problem with doubt is the desire to know, desire to have an answer, but the answer is that doubt feels like this. That is the answer. But doubt is a different feeling than confidence. So when you're doing this work and you like you have a good meditation, say, you think, oh yeah, I've got it now. And then, 2 meditations later, God, I'm down the drain today. Pathetic. But if you're not attaching to quality of experience and you're just knowing quality as an object, then it doesn't matter. But that's hard to do. It's hard to do. But you can see the quality of a meditation is dualistic. It is successful or not successful. It is serene or confused. But serenity and confusion can be known as objects. And hence doubt, which is one of the 5 hindrances for samadhi, it's the 3rd fetter in the fetter structures, is a very sneaky thing. And I know, like I've seen in the Sangha, people who just constantly in doubt, but they can't see doubt as an object. Should I be a monk or not? Is Theravada really the way? Maybe I should do Zen. And now is the knowing, is consciousness really permanent or is it impermanent? And am I really getting any? And you're just thinking, stop it. Doubt feels this way. So like the way Lompo Sumedho's been teaching, and I like to think of it, trust and awareness. Right? You have to trust in thought where thought is applicable. So in your workplace and in your responsibilities, sure, we trust in our powers of analysis and deduction and such like. But in here we're moving to the silence of the mind. And when you know doubt is doubt, so the question, how can I be sure that I'm doing it right? Trust and awareness. And then the mind, if the mind says, I don't believe you, fine. It feels like that. It's very, very simple. It's very elegant. And it seems too simple. It really does. But give it a go for a year and see what happens. So this is what we all experience in practicing what you taught earlier. It's like this. I find my mind having a very busy internal dialogue and keep trying to ask myself to come back after drifting to other stray thoughts. Any advice if this is the right practice? So again, internal dialogue is conditioned by a very active mental life. So if I've studied a lot and I've been in front of the computer and then I've been dialoguing with people, the thinking mind's been very stimulated. If you're on a beach for a couple of weeks, the thinking mind probably not so stimulated. So there's that. So there's a natural momentum in the thinking mind from our work life. And we have to accept that. So what I suggested earlier was, can you notice the end of a thought? And you can, because when you are thinking, something will interrupt your thinking. Usually it's sound or pain. Usually it's pain because it's pretty quiet here. And something comes up and I've been thinking about yesterday. In that moment, what happens is the desire to get rid of thought. And that desire isn't an awakened mind. It's a struggling mind. So, suggestion is that make an intention as you start the meditation that when you notice thinking, you'll just say, thank you, rather than, oh no. And that's a huge difference, isn't it? And what you're saying is thank you for the space, rather than you idiot, you're thinking again. It might not sound like much, but it's actually very productive. Because then in that moment, what you're putting is mindfulness, acceptance, kindness, and you're appreciating appreciating the moment of awakening. Oh yeah, it's like this. So there's a sense of gratitude and or self-congratulation. Oh wait, you're back. Rather than, oh, you've been gone again, you bum. You're kind of something uplifting, and then okay, that's the gap. We say not the clothing store. It's the gap between thoughts, right? And those gaps are infinitesimal in the beginning. They're small things, but if you can recognize that's the path, the end of thought. Oh, good. So if you can program your mind when you sit down, say, rather than I'm not going to think, that's hopeless. Pick up your object of meditation or whatever, but first of all, establish what we mean by presence. Listening, do that quite deliberately. And then make an intention, when I notice thinking, I'm going to say thank you. Or something like that, if you get what I mean. So then you're caught up in the planning of work or something, and you notice it, oh great, I'm back. It's like this. So really establish that moment of presence without desire. It's like this. Or if it's a very kind of habitual worry pattern, say, then take the worry and extend it for 2 more words. What am I going to do? Gosh, I want to buy a car. In Singapore, you have to pay $6 million to get a car, and you need these certificates of, oh my gosh, interesting how you buy cars here. But so your mind is worried about money, and then you notice. Then worry for another 2 words. I'm going to be broke. And then stop. Or you're resenting someone. I'm never going to forgive them. I know, that's thought. Thought feels this way. It's resentment. Label it. And then say, I don't like that person. It's a deliberate thought. Notice the end of the thought. Start to actually create and know the gaps between thoughts. And then the gaps get bigger and bigger. Because the gaps are really the doorway to the deathless. Gaps between thinking. Ego is thinking. I am a lovely person, I am a hopeless person, it's just thinking. But that's all it is. Ego is just a thought, it's not who you really are. And in the gaps of awakening, you try to encourage that. One of the enigmatic phrases I've used, which is hard to pick up on, is presence ever absent? It's a difficult one. You assume that you aren't aware, but actually I would suggest that presence is always there through all thinking. You would just identify with the ego. And so I've used that mantra. When I have found myself thinking, I'll just throw that enigmatic phrase up, is presence ever absent? And then that makes me very attentive and observing to the very sense of being. Is presence ever absent? And then that helped me to see the arising of thought and to see that actually a knowing was always there through the different types of thinking. So, I mean, that's a sort of enigmatic one, but I found that one. I like enigmatic puzzles. I enjoy that because they create curiosity, and then I find that for investigation. But isn't it just, is presence ever absent? You know, like ego comes and goes, but is presence ever absent? And it's a sort of like a koan, a Zen koan, like the huato, or is presence ever absent? And that way of observing the present moment brings you more and more to the silence of the unconditioned. We were going to do bumper stickers with that one. T-shirts, is presence ever absent? Is sitting without cushion or without propping the bum up, is that the gold standard for meditation? No. There is no gold standard for meditation. This person's probably under 50. The gold standard in my age is like, can you get through the hour without pain? So what you want to do is, like I used to have a really good full lotus posture, which is a fabulous posture, but I damaged both knees in the building of monasteries, and then I could do the Burmese, and now I'm up on a chair. It doesn't matter, really. What matters is that you can sustain vitality of presence over a span of time. And so, like, I find Yoga Nidra, the lying meditation, that fabulous posture. So, like I might get up early, I'll have a shower, have a cup of coffee, and then lay down for 2 hours until you do Yoga Nidra. Mind's really, really bright, because I've developed that posture. Is that the gold standard? Well, you know, the monks used to think, oh God, the old man, he says he's meditating, he's just lying down again. But they said, well, you try it. You see if you can do it. And then they came to me, wow, that's really difficult. So, if you make the gold standards, actually, how can the mind remain awake to the way things are for spans of time? What postures would work for you? Then maybe, like standing, like Ajahn Sucitto teaches Qigong. I've never done that. Standing, sitting, lying, walking, whatever. That's really what's important. And then don't hurt yourself. Like a lot of my peers, when we were young monks, really pushed their bodies to extremes. And it was just too much willpower, not enough wisdom. So don't hurt yourself. But be able to look at pain and discomfort as an object. There's a learning there, but not in a way it's just willful. So with the working with pain, there's a difference between waking to this, oh, pain feels this way, and saying, oh God, another 15 minutes, I just got to hang in, just don't move, don't move. That's not mindfulness. And you won't want to meditate much. But if you say, okay, there is discomfort, and discomfort feels this way, and then you use that as an object and you watch desire, you can learn a lot. But then you have to move, you move. So it's not like a kind of a blind determination. It seems that I need to prop the bum up to be able to sit with my back straight. That's what cushions are for. So again, I think the principle is having your hips higher than your knees. So like with this chair, it's pretty high, but I would probably, if I was using it a lot, I'd bring it up maybe 2 inches, and then my hips would be higher. So that obviously pushes you forward, and there's less stress on the small of the back. Like if you sit cross-legged on your bed, and your bottom goes into the bed, you know how difficult that is to hold yourself up. So it's the same thing. You get a bit of a tilt. That's why we use zafus and things like that. You still with me? So I wanted to clarify what exactly is the meditation object we are using. Is it the breath? From what I understand, we use silence to gather and compose the mind, and tuning it into bodily sensation also helps collect the mind. Then when we are still, we focus on the breath. Correct? No. I would say why I kind of don't really lay down a meditation technique, I sort of vaguely allude to it. I know that's confusing, but some people doing anapanasati get really tight. They just get too controlling. So they like to do shikantaza or choiceless awareness. And choiceless awareness is, I mean, you're still choosing to be aware, but you're not choosing an object. So it's just abiding as witness. And that's the most free-form, spacious kind of recommendation you might have. And that is used in Soto or Rinzai, one of the schools. I think the Japanese call it shikantaza, choiceless awareness. And so I know people who, when they try to do anapanasati, they just get too controlling. And then when they give them permission, well, just notice space. And the mind knowing the mind. That simple suggestion works really wonderfully for them for the whole hour. So that's one type of person. Another type of person finds that somehow too vague and too nebulous. So they like to kind of come into the present moment through an object. And then it kind of depends on where their mood is at. But if the principle is the awakened mind, and the awakened mind, rather than some exalted sense of samadhi, which you've been told you should get, and if you're looking for some exalted sense of samadhi, and you've been educated to get that, then okay, you can do that. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that the awake mind is sufficient. And that if you can trust in that, then that opens you to the deep silence of the deathless. That's my suggestion. So does the meditation serve that? In other words, does the type of meditation you do serve that awakened mind for spans of time? It might be the breath, it might be choiceless awareness, it might be metta bhavana, it might be different things at different times. And that's why when I talk, I know people get confused, like, which object am I choosing? But what that model of foreground background is trying to point to is that the resting place is the background, is awareness, and that the objects can be skillful means to remember the background. I know that's a bit nebulous, but that's the way I find helpful. So for this person, I would just experiment, just try. If you're attracted to the breath, fine, but are you trying to get something more than the simplicity of awareness? Is there something more you're trying to manufacture, get? And then the capacity or the intelligence to know that you're feeling really cynical, and to give the heart some loving kindness would be a good thing. Or you're feeling really, really restless, and now's the time just to say peace. Don't do nothing, don't go anywhere, nothing to do. Or you're feeling dull and sleepy, you say, come on, put some energy in. These all depend on time and place in different situations. Okay? I got a pile of questions here. I'm running behind my homework. Anyway, we've come almost to 5 o'clock, so could we perhaps end with the Buddha's words on loving kindness? I think it was 36. This is what should be done, is that right? 36? Yeah.
For those holding the white book, it's page 50. White color printout.
This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, freed from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views. The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Let's bow the closing homage on whatever page it is. Somewhere there. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhaṃ Bhagavantaṃ Abhivademi Sawakatoa Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipannoa Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Sāṅgham Namami.
Let us pay respect to Luang poetry bows.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Let us be in attention as Luang Po takes his leave. So thank you everyone. We see you tomorrow. As usual, please remember to bring your text along and take the attendance in the morning when you come in. Thank you.